I slid into the shirt and donned the knee-length underwear. "Well, Jeeves," I said, "what about it?" During the walk to the house, I had placed him in possession of the latest developments and had left him to turn them over in his mind with a view to finding a formula, while I went along the passage and took a hasty bath. I now gazed at him hopefully, like a seal awaiting a bit of fish. "Thought of anything, Jeeves?" "Not yet, sir, I regret to say." "What? No results whatever?" "None, sir, I fear." I groaned a hollow one and shoved on the trousers. I had become so accustomed to have this gifted man weigh in with the ripest ideas at the drop of a hat, that the possibility of his failing to deliver on this occasion had not occurred to me. The blow was a severe one, and it was with a quivering hand that I now socked the feet. A strange frozen sensation had come over me, rendering the physical and mental processes below par. It was as though both limbs and bean had been in a refrigerator, overlooked for several days. "It may be, Jeeves," I said, a thought occurring, "that you haven't got the whole scenario clear in your mind. I was able to give you only the merest outline before going off to scour the torso. I think it would be helpful if we did what they do in the thrillers. Do you ever read thrillers?" "Not very frequently, sir." "Well, there's always this bit where a detective, in order to clarify his thoughts, writes down a list of suspects. Motives, times when, alibis, clues and whatnot. Let us try this plan. Take pencil and paper, Jeeves, and we will assemble the facts. Entitle the thing Wooster B, position of. Ready?" "Yes, sir." "Right, now then. Item 1. Aunt Dahlia says that if I don't pinch that cow creamer and hand it over to her, she will bar me from her table and no more of Anatole's cooking." "Yes, sir." We now come to item 2, viz. If I do pinch the cow creamer and hand it over to her, Spode will beat me to a jelly. "Yes, sir." Furthermore, item 3, if I pinch it and hand it over to her and don't pinch it and hand it over to Harold Pinker, not only shall I undergo the jellying process alluded to above, but Stiffy will take that notebook of Gus's and hand it over to Sir Watkin Bassett. And you know and I know what the result of that would be. Well, there you are, that's the setup. You got it?" "Yes, sir, it is certainly a somewhat unfortunate state of affairs." I gave him one of my looks. "Jeeves," I said, "don't try me too high. Not a moment like this. Somewhat unfortunate, forsooth. Who was it you were telling me about the other day, on whose head all the sorrows of the world had come?" "The Mona Lisa, sir." "Well, if I met the Mona Lisa at this moment, I would shake her by the hand and assure her that I knew just how she felt. You see before you, Jeeves, a toad beneath the harrow." "Yes, sir." The trousers perhaps a quarter of an inch higher, sir. One aims at the carelessly graceful break over the instep. It is a matter of the nicest adjustment." "Like that?" "Admirable, sir." I sighed. There are moments, Jeeves, when one asks oneself, do trousers matter? The mood will pass, sir. I don't see why it should. If you can't think of a way out of this mess, it seems to me that it is the end. Of course, I proceeded on a brighter note, you haven't really had time to get your teeth into the problem yet. While I'm at dinner, examine it once more from every angle. It's just possible that an inspiration might pop up. Inspirations do, don't they? All in a flash, as it were. Yes, sir, the mathematician Archimedes is related to have discovered the principle of displacement quite suddenly one morning while in his bath. Well, there you are. And I don't suppose he was such a devil of a chap. Compared with you, I mean. A gifted man, I believe, sir. It has been a general matter of regret that he was subsequently killed by a common soldier. Too bad. Still, all flesh is grass, what? Very true, sir. I lighted a thoughtful cigarette and, dismissing Archimedes for the nonce, allowed my mind to dwell once more on the ghastly jam into which I had been thrust by young Stiffy's ill-advised behaviour. You know, Jeeves, I said, when you really start to look at it, it's perfectly amazing how the opposite sex seems to go out of its way to snooter me. You recall Miss Wickham and the hot water bottle? Yes, sir. And Gladys What's-her-name, who put her boyfriend with a broken leg to bed in my flat? Yes, sir. And Pauline Stoker, who invaded my rural cottage at dead of night in a bathing suit. Yes, sir. What a sex, Jeeves. But none of that sex, however deadlier than the male, can be ranked in the same class with this stiffy. He was the chap, whose name led all the rest, the bird with the angel. Abu Ben Adam, sir. That stiffy. She's the top. Yes, Jeeves. I was merely about to inquire, sir, if Miss Byng, when she uttered her threat of handing over Mr. Finknottle's notebook to Sir Watkin, by any chance spoke with a twinkle in her eye. A roguish one, you mean? Indicating that she was merely pulling my leg? Not a suspicion of it. No, Jeeves. I have seen untwinkling eyes before, many of them, but never a pair so totally free from twinkle as hers. She wasn't kidding. She meant business. She was fully aware that she was doing something which even by female standards was raw, but she didn't care. The whole fact of the matter is that all this modern emancipation of women has resulted in them getting it up their noses and not giving a damn what they do. It was not like this in Queen Victoria's day. The Prince Consort would have had a word to say about a girl like Stiffy, what? I can conceive that His Royal Highness might quite possibly not have approved of Miss Byng. He would have had her over his knee, laying into her with a slipper before she knew where she was. And I wouldn't have put it past him to have treated Aunt Dahlia in a similar fashion. Talking of which, I suppose I ought to be going and seeing the aged relative. She appeared very desirous of conferring with you, sir. Far from mutual, Jeeves, that desire. I will confess frankly that I am not looking forward to the séance. No, sir? No. You see, I sent her a telegram just before tea saying that I wasn't going to pinch that cow creamer, and she must have left London long before it arrived. In other words, she has come expecting to find a nephew straining at the leash to do her bidding, and the news will have to be broken to her that the deal is off. She will not like this, Jeeves, and I don't mind telling you that the more I contemplate the coming chat, the colder the feet become. If I might suggest, sir, it is of course merely a palliative, but it has often been found in times of despondency that the assumption of formal evening dress has a stimulating effect on the morale. You think I ought to put on white tie? Spode told me black. I consider that the emergency justifies the departure, sir. Perhaps you're right. And of course he was. In these delicate matters of psychology he never errs. I got into the full soup and fish and was immediately conscious of a marked improvement. The feet became warmer, the sparkle returned to the lacklustre eyes, and the soul seemed to expand, as if someone had got to work on it with a bicycle pump. And I was surveying the effect in the mirror, kneading the tie with gentle fingers and running over in my mind a few things which I proposed to say to Aunt Dahlia if she started getting tough, when the door opened and Gussie came in. At the sight of this bespectacled bird, a pang of compassion shot through me, for a glance was enough to tell me that he was not abreast of stop-press events. There was visible in his demeanour not one of the earmarks of a man to whom Stiffy had been confiding her plans. His bearing was buoyant, and I exchanged a swift, meaning glance with Jeeves. Mine said, "He little knows," and so did his. "What ho?" said Gussie. "What ho? Hello, Jeeves." "Good evening, sir." "Well, Bertie, what's the news? Have you seen her?" A pang of compassion became more acute. I heaved a silent sigh. It was to be my mournful task to administer to this old friend a very substantial sock in the jaw, and I shrank from it. Still, these things have to be faced. The surgeon's knife, I mean to say. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I've seen her. Jeeves, have we any brandy?" "No, sir." "Could you get a spot?" "Certainly, sir." "Better bring the bottle." "Very good, sir." He melted away, and Gussie stared at me in honest amazement. "What's all this? You can't start swigging brandy just before dinner." "I do not propose to. It is for you, my suffering old martyr at the stake, that I require the stuff." "I don't drink brandy." "I'll bet you drink this brandy. Yes, and call for more. Sit down, Gussie, and let us chat a while." And deposing him in the armchair, I engaged him in desultory conversation about the weather and the crops. I didn't want to spring the thing on him till the restorative was handy. I prattled on, endeavouring to infuse into my deportment a sort of bedside manner which would prepare him for the worst. And it was not long before I noted that he was looking at me oddly. "Bertie, I believe you're pie-eyed." "Not at all." "What are you babbling like this for?" "I'm just filling in till Jeeves gets back with the fluid." "Ah, thank you, Jeeves." I took the brimming beaker from his hand and gently placed Gus's fingers around the stem. "You'd better go and inform Aunt Dahlia that I shall not be able to keep our tryst, Jeeves. This is going to take some time." "Very good, sir." I turned to Gussie, who was now looking like a bewildered halibut. "Gussie," I said, "drink that down and listen. I'm afraid I have bad news for you. About that notebook." "About the notebook?" "Yes." "You don't mean she hasn't got it?" "That is precisely the nub or crux. She has, and she is going to give it to Pop Bassett." I had expected him to take it fairly substantially, and he did. His eyes, like stars, started from their spheres, and he leapt from the chair, spilling the contents of the glass and causing the room to niff like the saloon bar of a pub on a Saturday night. "What?" "That is the position, I fear." "But my gosh!" "Yes." "You don't really mean that?" "I do." "But why?" "She has her reasons." "But you can't realise what'll happen." "Yes, she does." "It will mean ruin?" "Definitely." "Oh my gosh!" It has often been said that disaster brings out the best in the Woosters. A strange calm descended on me. I patted his shoulder. "Courage, Gussie. Think of Archimedes." "Why?" "He was killed by a common soldier." "What of it?" "Well, it can't have been pleasant for him, but I have no doubt he passed out smiling. My intrepid attitude had a good effect. He became more composed. I don't say that even now we were exactly like a couple of French aristocrats waiting for the tumbril, but there was a certain resemblance." "When did she tell you this?" "On the terrace, not long ago." "And she really meant it?" "Yes." "There wasn't a twinkle in her eyes?" "No, no twinkle." "Well, isn't there any way of stopping her?" I had been expecting him to bring this up, but I was sorry he had done so. I foresaw a period of fruitless argument. "Yes," I said, "there is. She says she will forego her dreadful purpose if I steal old Bassett's cow creamer." "You mean that silver cow thing he was showing us at dinner last night?" "That's the one." "But why?" I explained the position of affairs. He listened intelligently, his face brightening. "Now I see. Now I understand. I couldn't imagine what her idea was. Her behaviour seemed so absolutely motiveless." "Well, that's fine. That solves everything." I hated to put a crimp on his happy exuberance, but it had to be done. "Not quite, because I'm jolly well not going to do it." "What? Why not?" "Because, if I do, Roderick Spode says he will beat me to a jelly." "What's Roderick Spode got to do with it?" "He appears to have espoused that cow creamer's cause. No doubt from esteem for old Bassett." "Oh, well, you're not afraid of Roderick Spode." "Yes, I am." "Nonsense, I know you better than that." "No, you don't." He took a turn up and down the room. "But, Bertie, there's nothing to be afraid of in a man like Spode, a mere mass of beef and brawn. He's bound to be slow on his feet. He'd never catch you." "I don't intend to try him out as a sprinter." "Besides, it isn't as if you had to stay on here. You can be off in the moment you've put the thing through. Send a note down to this curate after dinner, telling him to be on the spot at midnight, and then go to it. Here is the schedule as I see it. Steal cow creamer, say 12:15 to 12:30. Call it 12:40 to allow for accidents. 12:45, be at the stable starting up your car. 12:50, out on the open road, having accomplished a nice smooth job. I can't think what you're worrying about. The whole thing seems childishly simple to me." "Nevertheless, you won't do it?" "No." He moved to the mantelpiece and began fiddling with a statuette of a shepherdess of sorts. "Is this Bertie Wooster speaking?" he asked. "It is." "Bertie Wooster, whom I admired so at school, the boy we used to call Daredevil Bertie?" "That's right." "In that case, I suppose there's nothing more to be said." No. Our only course is to recover the book from Bing. How do you propose to do that? He pondered, frowning. Then the little grey cell seemed to stir. I know. Listen. That book means a lot to her, doesn't it? It does. This being so, she would carry it on her person, as I did. I suppose so. In her stocking, probably. Very well, then. How do you mean, very well, then? Don't you see what I'm driving at? No. Well, listen, you could easily engage her in a sort of friendly romp, if you know what I mean, in the course of which it would be simple to, well, something in the nature of a jocular embrace. I checked him sharply. There are limits, and we Woosters recognise them. Gussie, are you suggesting that I prod stiff his legs? Yes. Well, I'm not going to. Why not? We need not delve into my reasons, I said stiffly. Suffice it to say that the shot is not on the board. He gave me a look, a kind of wide-eyed, reproachful look, such as a dying newt might have given him if he had forgotten to change its water regularly. He drew in his breath sharply. You certainly have altered completely from the boy I knew at school, he said. You seem to have gone all to pieces. No pluck, no dash, no enterprise. Alcohol, I suppose. He sighed and broke the shepherdess, and we moved to the door. As I opened it, he gave me another look. You aren't coming down to dinner like that, are you? What are you wearing white tie for? Jeeves recommended it to keep up the spirits. Well, you're going to feel a perfect ass. Old Bassett dines in a velvet smoking jacket with soup across the front. Better change. There was a good deal in what he said. One does not like to look conspicuous. At the risk of lowering their morale, I turned to doff the tails. And as I did so, there came to us from the drawing-room below the sound of a fresh young voice chanting to the accompaniment of a piano, what exhibited all the symptoms of being an English folk song. The ear detected a good deal of hey nonny nonny and all that sort of thing. This uproar had the effect of causing Gussie's eyes to smoulder behind his spectacles. It was as if he were feeling that this was just that little bit extra which is more than man can endure. Stephanie Bing, he said bitterly, singing at a time like this. He snorted and left the room, and I was just finishing tying the black tie when Jeeves entered. Mrs. Travers, he announced formally. And oh golly, broke from my lips. I had known, of course, hearing that formal announcement, that she was coming. But so does a poor blighter taking a stroll and looking up and seeing a chap in an aeroplane dropping a bomb on his head know that it's coming, but it doesn't make it any better when it arrives. I could see that she was a good deal stirred up. All of a doodah would perhaps express it better, and I hastened to bung her civilly into the armchair and make my apologies. Frightfully sorry I couldn't come and see you, old ancestor, I said. I was closeted with Gussie Finknottle upon a matter deeply affecting our mutual interests. Since we last met, there have been new developments, and my affairs have become somewhat entangled, I regret to say. You might put it that hell's foundations are quivering. That is not overstating it, Jeeves. No, sir. She dismissed my protestations with a wave of the hand. So, you're having your troubles too, are you? Well, I don't know what new developments there have been at your end, but there has been a new development at mine, and it's a stinker. That's why I have come down here in such a hurry. The most rapid action has got to be taken, or the home will become a melting pot. I began to wonder if even the Mona Lisa could have found the going so sticky as I was finding it. One thing after another, I mean to say. What is it? I asked. What's happened? She choked for a moment, and then contrived to utter a single word. Anatole. Anatole? I took her hand and pressed it soothingly. Tell me, old fever patient, I said, what, if anything, are you talking about? How do you mean, Anatole? If we don't look slippy, we shall lose him. A cold hand seemed to clutch my heart. Lose him? Yes. Even after doubling his wages? Even after doubling his wages? Listen, Bertie, just before I left home this afternoon, a letter arrived for Tom from Sir Watkin Bassett. When I say just before I left home, that was what made me leave home. Because do you know what was in it? What? It contained an offer to swap the cow creamer for Anatole, and Tom is seriously considering it. I stared at her. What? Incredulous. Incredible, sir. Thank you, Jeeves. Incredible. I don't believe it. Uncle Tom would never contemplate such a thing for an instant. Wouldn't he? That's all you know. Do you remember Pomeroy, the butler we had before Seppings? I should say so. A noble fellow. Treasure. A gem. I never could think why you let him go. Tom traded him to the Bessington Copes for an overformed chocolate pot on 3 scroll feet. I struggled with growing despair. But surely the delirious old ass, Uncle Tom, wouldn't fritter Anatole away like that. He certainly would. She rose and moved restlessly to the mantelpiece. I could see that she was looking for something to break as a relief from her surging emotions, what Jeeves would have called a palliative, and courteously drew her attention to a terracotta figure of the infant Samuel at prayer. She thanked me briefly and held it against the opposite wall. I tell you, Bertie, there are no lengths to which a really loony collector will not go to secure a coveted specimen. Tom's actual words, as he handed me the letter to read, were that it would give him genuine pleasure to skin old Bassett alive and personally drop him into a vat of boiling oil, but that he saw no alternative but to meet his demands. The only thing that stopped him wiring him there and then was that it was a deal was my telling. The only thing that stopped him wiring him there and then that it was a deal was my telling him that you had gone to Totley Towers expressly to pinch the cow creamer, and that he would have it in his hands almost immediately. How are you coming along in that direction, Bertie? Formed your schemes? All your plans cut and dried? We can't afford to waste time. Every moment is precious. I felt a triumphal boneless. The news I saw would now have to be broken, and I hoped that that was all there would be. This aunt is a formidable old creature when stirred, and I could not but recall what had happened to the infant Samuel. I was going to talk to you about that, I said. Jeeves, have you that document we prepared? Here it is, sir. Thank you, Jeeves. And I think it might be a good thing if you were to go and bring us a pot more brandy. Very good, sir. He withdrew, and I slipped her the paper, bidding her read it attentively. She gave it the eye. What's all this? You will soon see. Note how it is headed Worcester. B. Position of. Those words tell the story. They explain, I said, backing a step and getting ready to duck, why it is that I must resolutely decline to pinch that cow creamer. What? I sent you a telegram to that effect this afternoon, but of course it missed you. She was looking at me pleadingly, like a fond mother at an idiot child who has just pulled something exceptionally goofy. But Bertie, dear, haven't you been listening? About Anatole, don't you realise the position? Oh, quite. Then have you gone cuckoo? Oh, when I say gone, of course... I held up a checking hand. Let me explain, aged R. You will recall that I mentioned to you that there had been some recent developments. One of these is that Sir Watkin Bassett knows all about this cow creamer pinching scheme and is watching my every movement. Another is that he has confided his suspicions to a pal of his named Spode. Perhaps on your arrival here you met Spode. That big fellow? Big is right, though perhaps super-colossal would be more the mot juste. Well, Sir Watkin, as I say, has confided his suspicions to Spode, and I have it from the latter personally that if that cow creamer disappears, he will beat me to a jelly. That is why nothing constructive can be accomplished. A silence of some duration followed these remarks. I could see that she was chewing on the thing and reluctantly coming to the conclusion that it was no idle whim of Bertram's that was causing him to fail her in her hour of need. She appreciated the cleft stick in which he found himself and, unless I am vastly mistaken, shuddered at it. This relative is a woman who, in the days of my boyhood and adolescence, was accustomed frequently to clump me over the side of the head when she considered that my behaviour warranted this gesture, and I have often felt in these days that she was on the point of doing it again. But beneath this ear-hole sloshing exterior there beats a tender heart, and her love for Bertram is, I know, deep-rooted. She would be the last person to wish to see him get his eyes bunged up and have that well-shaped nose punched out of position. I see, she said at length. Yes, that makes things difficult, of course. Extraordinarily difficult. If you care to describe the situation as an impasse, it will be all right with me. Said he would beat you to a jelly, did he? That was the expression he used. He repeated it, so there could be no mistake. Well, I wouldn't for the world have you manhandled by that big stiff. You wouldn't have a chance against a gorilla like that. He would tear the stuffing out of you before you could say pip-pip. He would render you limb from limb and scatter the fragments to the four winds. I winced a little. No need to make a song and dance about it, all flesh and blood. You mean you sure he meant what he said? Quite. His bark may be worse than his bite. I smiled sadly. I see where you're heading, Aunt Dahlia, I said. In another minute you will be asking if there wasn't a twinkle in his eye as he spoke. There wasn't. The policy which Roderick Spode outlined to me at our recent interview is the policy which he will pursue and fulfil. And we seem to be stymied, unless Jeeves can think of something. She addressed the man, who had just entered with the brandy, not before it was time. I couldn't think why he had taken so long over it. We're talking of Mr. Spode, Jeeves. Yes, madam. Jeeves and I have already discussed the Spode menace, I said moodily, and he confesses himself baffled. For once, this substantial brain has failed to click. He has brooded, but no formula. Aunt Dahlia had been swigging the brandy gratefully, and there now came into her face a thoughtful look. You know what has just occurred to me, she said. Say on, old thicker-than-water, I replied, still with that dark moodiness. I'll bet it's rotten. It's not rotten at all. It may solve everything. I've been wondering if this man Spode hasn't some shady secret. Do you know anything about him, Jeeves? No, madam. How do you mean, a secret? What I was turning over in my mind was the thought that if he had some chink in his armour, one might hold him up by means of it, thus drawing his fangs. I remember when I was a girl seeing your Uncle George kiss my governess, and it was amazing how it eased the strain later on when there was any question of her keeping me in after school to write out the principal imports and exports of the United Kingdom. You see what I mean? Suppose we knew that Spode had shot a fox or something. You don't think much of it, she said, seeing that I was pursing my lips dubiously. I can see it as an idea, but there seems to be one fatal snag, viz. That we don't know. Yes, that's true, she rose. Oh, well, it was just a random thought. I merely threw it out. And now I think I will be returning to my room and spraying my temples with eau de cologne. My head feels as if it's about to burst like shrapnel. The door closed. I sank into the chair she had vacated and mopped the bee. Well, that's over, I said thankfully. She took the blow better than I had hoped, Jeeves. The corn trains its daughters well. But stiff though her upper lip was, you could see that she felt it deeply, and that brandy came in handy. By the way, you were the dickens of a while bringing it. A St. Bernard dog would have been back in them half the time. Yes, sir, I am sorry. I was detained in conversation by Mr. Finknottle. I sat pondering. You know, Jeeves, I said, that wasn't at all a bad idea of Aunt Dahlia's about getting the goods on Spode. Fundamentally, it was sound. If Spode had buried the body and we knew where, it will unquestionably render him a negligible force. But you say you know nothing about him? No, sir. I doubt it's anything to know, anyway. There are some chaps. One look at them is enough to tell you that they are pucker sahibs who play the game and do not do the things that aren't done. And prominent among these, I fear, is Roderick Spode. I shouldn't imagine that the most rigorous investigation would uncover anything about him worse than that moustache of his. And to the world's scrutiny of that, he obviously has no objection, or he wouldn't wear the damn thing. Very true, sir. Still, it might be worthwhile to institute inquiries. Yes, but where? I was thinking of the Junior Ganymede, sir. It's a club for gentlemen's personal gentlemen in Curzon Street, to which I have belonged for some years. The personal attendant of a gentleman of Mr. Spode's prominence would be sure to be a member, and he would, of course, have confided to the secretary a good deal of material concerning him for insertion in the club book. Eh? Under Rule 11, every new member is required to supply the club with full information regarding his employer. This not only provides entertaining reading, but serves as a warning to members who may be contemplating taking service with gentlemen who fall short of the ideal. A thought struck me, and I started. Indeed, I started rather violently. What happened when you joined? Sir? Did you tell them all about me? Oh, yes, sir. What, everything? The time an old stoker was after me and I had to black out with boot polish in order to assume a rudimentary disguise? Yes, sir. And the occasion on which I came home after Pongo Twistleton's birthday party and mistook the standard lamp for a burglar? Yes, sir, the members like to have these things to read on wet afternoons. They do they? Huh. And suppose some wet afternoon Aunt Agatha reads them. Did that occur to you? The contingency of Mrs. Spencer Gregson obtaining access to the club book is a remote one. I dare say. But recent events under this very roof will have shown you how women do obtain access to books. I relapsed into silence, pondering on the startling glimpse he had accorded of what went on in institutions like the Junior Ganymede, of the existence of which I had previously been unaware. I had known, of course, that at nights, after serving the frugal meal, Jeeves would put on the old bowler hat and slip round the corner, but I had always assumed his destination to have been the saloon bar of some neighbouring pub. Of clubs in Curzon Street I had had no inkling. Still less had I had an inkling that some of the fruitiest of Bertram Wooster's possibly ill-judged actions were being inscribed in a book. The whole thing, to my mind, smacked rather unpleasantly of Abu Ben Adam and recording angels, and I found myself frowning somewhat. And still, there didn't seem much to be done about it. So I returned to what Constable Oates would have called the pointer tissue. Then what's your idea? To apply to the Secretary for information about Spode? Yes, sir. You think he'll give it to you? Oh, yes, sir. You mean he scatters these data, these extraordinarily dangerous data, these data that might spell ruin if they fell into the wrong hands, broadcast to whoever asks for them? Only to members, sir. How soon could you get in touch with him? I could ring him up on the telephone immediately, sir. Then do so, Jeeves, and if possible chalk the call up to Sir Watkin Bassett. And don't lose your nerve when you hear the girl say 3 minutes. Carry on regardless. Cost what it may. Ye sec must be made to understand, and understand thoroughly, that now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of the party. I think I can convince him that an emergency exists, sir. If you can't, refer him to me. Very good, sir. He started off on his errand of mercy. Oh, by the way, Jeeves, I said, as he was passing through the door, did you say you had been talking to Gussie? Yes, sir. Had he anything new to report? Yes, sir. It appears that his relations with Miss Bassett have been severed. The engagement is broken off. He floated out, and I leapt 3 feet. A dashed difficult thing to do when you're sitting in an armchair, but I managed it. Jeeves! I yelled, but he had gone, leaving not a rack behind. From downstairs there came the sudden booming of the dinner gong.